I am pleased and honored to stand before such a distinguished group of artists, the passionate observers that we are. The journey that an artist takes to excavate and illuminate all the possible meanings of our humanity and what it might possibly mean to nature and his immutable laws is not without peril. It is an undertaking that requires courage and a fierce belief in one's right to stand and speak a truth, withholding to nothing but himself. The discovery of that truth, the testing of it from the battlefield of self-affirmation, giving legitimate expression to your ideas and attitudes, your rituals, your myths, your gods, and your language is both a duty and an exalted task. I owe my artistic journey, which has been fueled by the work of these very same artists, and by Romare Bearden in particular, to my discovery of the blues in 1965. I had purchased for 5 cents a yellow, typewritten label, 78 RPM entitled Nobody in Town Could Make a Sweet Jelly Roll Like Mine by someone named Bessie Smith. And as I had read elsewhere, as I dropped the needle on my old 78 RPM record player onto the record, the universe stuttered and everything fell into a new place. The blues gave me a history. It provided me with a cultural response to the world, as well as the knowledge that the text and context of my life was working at the highest celebration and occasion of art. It also gave me a framework and an aesthetic to explore the tradition from which it grew. And I've set out on a search of ways to give expression to this spiritual impulse of the African American culture that had nurtured me, sanctioned my life, and ultimately provided me with this music. I was, as all artists, searching for ways to define myself in relation to the world that I lived in. And the blues gave me a firmer, secure ground, and it became and remains the wellspring of my art. In 1977, I made another discovery which changed my life. I discovered the art of Romare Bearden. I was then a 32-year-old poet who had taken his aesthetic from the blues, but was unsure of how to turn it into a narrative that would encompass all of the elements of culture and tradition, which Baldwin had so eloquently called the field of manners and rituals of intercourse that sustains Black American life. My friend Claude Purdy had purchased a copy of The Prevalence of Ritual, and one night, in the fall of 1977, after dinner, he laid a book open on the table and said, "Look at this. Look at this." And what for me had been so difficult, what Bearden made seemed so simple, so easy. And what I saw when I looked was Black life presented on its own terms, on a grand and epic scale, with all of its richness and fullness and language that was vibrant and made attendant to everyday life, and nobled it, affirmed it, and affirmed its value, and exalted its presence. It was an art of large and generous spirit that not only defined the character of Black American life, but also its conscience. I don't recall what I said when I looked at it. My response was visceral. I was looking at myself in ways that I hadn't thought of before, and in ways which I had never ceased to think of since. In Bearden, I found my artistic mentor and sought and still aspired to make my plays an equal to his canvases. In 2 instances, his paintings have been directly inspirational. My play, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, was inspired by Bearden's Mealman's Lunch Bucket, and the title of my play, The Piano Lesson, was taken from the Bearden painting of the same title, which Bearden painted as homage to Barry Williams, the great jazz pianist. I've never had the privilege of meeting Romare Bearden. Once I sit outside 305 Canal Street, in silent homage, daring myself to knock on his door. I'm sorry that I didn't. For I have never looked back from that moment when I first encountered his art. He showed me the doorway, the road mark, and the signpost, its sharp and sure directions, charting a path through what is called the dark force of the soul. When I entered the world of Romare Bearden, I found a world made in my image, a world of flesh and muscle, and blood and bone and fire, a world made of scraps of paper and line and mass, form and shape and color, and all the melding of race and buzz and trains and guitars and women bathing and men with huge hands and hearts pressing on life until it gave them back something intentional, until it gave back in fragments a gesture, a speech, a colossal spirit tested through time in the storm and the lash, a spirit conjured in me, unbroken, unbowed, and past any reason for assault, seeking an aria in faultless duty from unbridled hope. I've often thought of what I would have said to him that day if I had knocked on his door and he had answered. Among my treasured possessions is a scrap of paper which was written, August Wilson, although I have never met you, I feel I have known you all my life. Thus an ambiguity that an artist would understand. It is signed Romare Bearden. Great art is a salutary act of will and daring, in which there is a twining of theater and art that bridges the dark night of the soul and gladdens the artist with the gods. And there are many such moments of privilege and triumph on display in this exhibit, and we are blessed to have them collected, preserved, and presented for our instruction in such a splendid setting.